Thank you, Hugo, and welcome everybody once again back. It's certainly much better to be here at this time rather than my inaugural session when we had about 20% of the hall filled up. A lot more people, certainly reflective of what's happening in the world of retail today. Uh, I have the privilege of moderating this panel. Uh, Very learned people in retail. You all heard Ashwin speak earlier, and I can tell you that Kulin and Venu are no patch behind at all. Uh, what I'd like to kick off this panel is with a short presentation. I know we are running a little behind schedule, so I'll try and make sure that we kind of wrap up everything in about half an hour. Indulge me for 5 minutes with my presentation, which will hopefully set a context for the discussion, and then we'll have questions being posed to the panelists, both by you all as audience and me as moderator, and then of course specific questions from the audience to the panelists also. Can we have that presentation on, Sushmita? Yeah, paradigms that are shaping retail. Just a quick thought on what are some of the issues that I thought we need to ponder on. The first is about, we've all been used to a world of retail where we have stores, where we have customers coming to our stores. And during the last 2 years, what point was chillingly driven to all of us is that how do we get product to go to customer as opposed to customer coming to product. And I think there is a significant challenge in thinking of it as product to customer, and I think Ashwin alluded to it when he said that it's not just important to have a platform, it's also important to figure out how do you create infrastructure around the platform, both at the back end in terms of supply and at the front end in terms of delivery. And while we think of various exotic ways of delivering to a customer, what is important to remember is that at the end of the day, it's got to be the optimum of cost, convenience, and of course, it has to make sense both to the retailer and to the customer. The second point is that just imagine the changes that are likely to happen if we start delivering products to customers as opposed to customers coming in to buy products from us. Think of what's going to happen to our stores. How will our stores need to change? Will they be just transaction points as they've been in the past? Or will we have to think of them as being able to deliver services and experiences? If they have to deliver services and experiences, then will they be designed the way they have currently been designed? Third is in terms of people. And when we think of people, reflect on what a grocery store typically is. A customer walks in, it's a self-service model. Somebody says, where is the toothpaste section? The role of the person in the store is to point out, down that aisle, down this aisle, etc. But when you think beyond it and think of the store as being a place where you have to deliver an experience, it can't be just about being a guide. You also have to be able to talk to the customer in their language, talk to them at that level, talk to them in a knowledgeable fashion, and hopefully provide them the guidance as opposed to merely being a guide. Think of the direct impact on technology. Think of what it means as far as customers are concerned, communicating to customers. We've been in a world where we've transitioned quite rapidly from physical to digital. And it's not just about shopping, it's about everything in our lives. So it's about the way we actually consume news, it's about the way we consume entertainment. All of these have changed. So if we are going to transfer from physical to digital in terms of our interaction with many of our consumption categories, then think of how you're also having to communicate with the customer. The communication also then has to translate from physical to digital. So that's one of the aspects. Think of how you have to understand customers. Because if you have to try and provide product to customer, then you also need to know customer as opposed to just knowing store in the past. So all of the analytics that you need to do around customer, Think of all the technology that you need to use within your store and the technology that you need to use outside of your store. Payment was one mechanism, supply chain is another, integration with your suppliers is a third. There are several parts of technology which you need to use outside of your store. So overall, imagine the role of technology. Think of the power of data. Data, when I talk about, it's about the data that you have of your customer, the data that you have about your categories, the data that you have about the location where the store is, the data about your own store. And when we think of it very differently. Sometimes we think of it as POS data. Sometimes we think of it as GIS data. Sometimes we think of it as video analytics. But whichever way you look at it, it is data. And you need to be able to think of how to be able to leverage the power of this data in order to be able to get a more meaningful analysis of what's happening in your stores, what's happening with your categories, and what's happening with your customers. And then finally, the ability you have to customize. When you know what your customer is and when you know what they are doing, how they are buying, then the opportunity that you have to be able to customize, to be able to mass customize to the power of one is significant. And that is something that is available to all of us today. So these are just a few of the points that I thought I will share with you and then seek the thoughts of my fellow panelists in terms of what they think about it. So Ashwin, just to come to you in terms of one of the points, which is about, because you've got the largest network of stores. So when you think of stores and when you think of how you're going to be able to change the way stores are in the light of what we might today define as omni-channel commerce, etc., how do you actually think of it as being extended arms of interface with the customer?
So I think this was with experience, and we fortunately got a good time in terms of managing this during the pandemic period. And there was a time in the pandemic period when before pandemic, of course, apparel and those were being shipped from the large warehouses and in a very orderly manner. But when it came to groceries, the demand in the pandemic, the early 2020 situation when everything was shaken at that time, our stores were there in a lot of places in terms of groceries, and we started picking, packing and shipping goods from there on a very strong hyper-local basis, because people could not come and people wanted to order on different modes. Whatever was convenient, somebody writing on WhatsApp, somebody trying to do on phone, and all that was done. So receiving orders on the platform and by different means was allowed. But very soon we realized that for the store to fulfill, say, 600 orders suddenly come up actually. It is a task. It is not designed to do deliveries. It sounds very easy to say hyper-local when 10 deliveries are to be done, 20 are to be done. It is coming in a piecemeal basis, but really picking large number of items which are stored in different racks and shelves of the stores, we realize that that has to be done, but how it has to be done. So we immediately changed our the way in which we were organized. So one was definitely very orderly way the items are kept in the shelves of the store as it would be in a warehouse also. But a portion in the store was reserved for this picking, packing and shipping activity. So we carved out, say, 1,000 square foot or 1,500 square foot, depending upon the size of the store and number of orders it would get. And we changed our software to introduce, like a warehouse, how to do a wave picking inside the store for a batch of 50 orders, bring all the items from the store shelves to this place, and from there you do the entire order-wise picking and packing and then shipping from there. And you have, again, it was important that number of delivery vehicles, the bikers who come in, they need to have a space. You can't have on SV Road in Mumbai a line of bikers who are standing and you're creating a traffic jam. So that was also a learning how to create that infrastructure outside also, and the quick clearance of that. So call the biker at that time inside in batches in a manner that they are not congesting the things, and they are out also in a very short period of time. So we had to do away with lot of control so-called thoughts, because when goods are going out, the security guy wants to recheck it and say that anything is not going out. But we had to really make it in such a workflow that it is on one touch point, it is going and it is becoming seamless in that manner. So this was a learning which we had. So I'm sure that whoever wants to do bigger transactions and volumes will have to go through this when we talk of hyperlocal. And another problem which was there obviously was that customers are also shopping from that store. So how do you ensure that your inventory is on an optimum level in the store, that before you could pick up from an online order and the customer has taken away all the bottles of Coke because they found the price very good, and you're then cutting a sorry picture with the customer. So that was also another learning which we had to do, of really ensuring that orders don't come in for that SKU, shutting off the SKU from the visibility of the customer if you are not able to do on a hyperlocal basis. And then we added the tail SKUs. So again, we realized that this much what was in the store was there, and that was liked by the customers and they were ordering, but there was an opportunity to service even the tail SKUs on a hyperlocal basis. So connecting that from the DC to the store, because you want to incur only one delivery cost to the customer and not two deliveries, because otherwise it's a cost of delivery to us. So how to connect that and optimize and bring that order into the picking line when the remaining item has reached from you from the DC. And obviously we realized that customer was forgiving, or customer was ready to wait when they were doing the planned orders in terms of a bigger basket or the items what they wanted actually. So all this is now with our learning synchronized, and software plays a very large part, but physical debottlenecking is also very important. And similar was in the case of even apparel, that our premium stores which are there, what we call RBL portfolio, there whatever is there in the store, it is offered because that's all merchandise to be sold, and it can be sold because it is really liked by the customer, and there is no so much need for really, I mean, that kind of competition that all bottles are going, etc. So opening up those stores to the customers was also very beneficial. So again, the same way, what is there, you connect and show to the customer and sell. And what is not there, you bring and connect to the store, and from there do the local delivery. So that's what on the hyperlocal situation we learned. And it works very well with effort, of course. So
great. So what you can understand from all of that is that transforming from just physical store model to being an omni-channel model is a massive transformation in terms of processes. It's a very different ballgame in terms of people and skill sets. So I'd like to ask Venu about people and skill sets. And what are some of the changes and challenges that you're today seeing in terms of transforming people capabilities from, say, pre-pandemic to a current situation? I can't still call ourselves post-pandemic, to the current situation, in terms of the kind of capabilities which are required amongst the staff.
I think carrying on from what Ashwin said, and I think the changes are across the entire spectrum. And for retailers, especially brick and mortar retailers with large number of people, the change management becomes very, very important. And first and foremost, I would put it as the importance of getting people to adopt digital, get a digital mindset, and start thinking digital first. And it's easier said than done, because our traditional ways of thinking has always been towards physical retail and what we have done. And embracing that change and being able to think digital without giving up what is important for physical retail. And if I give a specific example here, and I mean, at Shoppers Stop, we had the personal shopper program, and we've had that for a few years, and it is something which has worked very well for us. It is the evolution of that personal shopper from being somebody who assists customers when they are in store and give them special attention, they are available at the end of a phone, to being more of style advisors, makeup artists, and who are giving that extra value to the customer from being just somebody who assists. Because, and as Bijou, you said in your slide, today the customer, even when they walk in, they know everything about the product probably. It's about how do you add value to the customer when they are in the store, and then extend that online. So when they are on the shopperstop.com app, how can we help using content? And again, when it comes to content, it's about then building your organization to also have those new capabilities. Content creation is something which is very, very different and new. And today, that customer journey is hugely assisted by the content we have, the curation of the content, and the genuineness of that content related to your customer. So first, it's about upgrading your existing existing people. Second, it's about getting a digital mindset from the people or for the people. And third, about bringing in the new skills to augment what you already have.
Thanks, Venu. And just borrowing your last line, Kulin, augment what we already have. And I think one of the things that we've seen has been the role of technology in being able to augment everything that we do. So whether it's in terms of a process change, as Ashwin talked about, whether it's in terms of enhancing people capability and their knowledge of both the customer and the product, technology has played a very, very important role. So what are some of the things that we are seeing in terms of technology changes which are likely to be more permanent in a retail world of the future?
Yeah, so I think there are the change that is happening. I mean, the digital change, the speed at which it is happening is phenomenal. And I think the way the technology stack, I think for any retailer needs to evolve. I think it is very difficult for a company to do all the heavy lifting themselves. So I think if you break down the way I look at the tech stack, there is the classical technology stack, which is the plumbing of a company, which is the erstwhile SAP way of thinking, which is the enterprise stack. I think the enterprise stack, of course, continues to be at the base of the way the technology backbone of a company is. But I think the way the application stack on top of that needs to be developed, that is very, very critical. And I think that is where building the right set of technology integrations and working in an ecosystem way to upgrade and provide all the functionalities of omni-channel retail. I think that is the real complex way, the complexity that retailers are facing. So the way we have done it in EFL is that you have the core enterprise stack, and then you are basically developing some parts of the omni-channel stack yourself, which is where you bring in some customization, some special kind of features which you want to own. And then there is the whole piece around working with a lot of startups, because you know, the way technology is moving and the speed at which it is moving, I think it is important to focus on specialized tech stacks which do something well. So a company which, for example, does personalization well can sit on top of your data layer and just help you develop, say, personalized communication or campaign factory. Similarly, a company that does one inventory very well, you know, there are SaaS startups which do it. We have incubated our own. They can help you do the whole store inventory being taken live online very well. Then you would have people possibly who do the whole logistics management, the LMS part of things well. So I think to succeed in today's world, how do you design your core stack in a way that various modules can sit on top of it, and you do a mixture of in-house and outsource to be able to manage it? Because I think the biggest challenge is the speed of change. And unless you set up your tech stack for flexibility, along with you know, the power of the functionality, you will never be able to stay, you know, on top of things or ahead of the game. So I think that's kind of the challenge which a lot of us retailers are facing. And the way we take the design decisions on technology will play a very big role. And then I think the other part of it is the organization. I think the speed of change, the hardest part, as Venuji was saying, is change management. So how do you balance the old world core IT tech thinking, but with this new age agile way of being able to collaborate with the ecosystem, to work in a sprint model than the classical, waterfall model where you build things over a year. You need to be instantaneous and change. So how do you design the org to start thinking that way as well? And this will imply that the technology part of your org and the business part of your org needs to collaborate a lot more because of the kind of ways in which the application layer is changing. So I think designing for your organization to manage this technology change is as critical as the way you design the technology stack itself.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, Kulin. So what you can see and hear from everybody who's been part of this panel so far has been echoing what Hitesh mentioned earlier, which is the feedback that we got from the CEOs in terms of what needs to be the theme for this conference: change. We talked about process changes when Ashwin talked about how to move from merely being single channel to multi-channel, yet to get to omni-channel. We talked about people changes when it comes to handling people in a store and handling people in multi-channel situations. We talked about technology changes, how from the historic past where we used to do a lot of things in-house and do it ourselves, we're now talking about a collaborative model in terms of technology where you're putting pieces in together in order to build a tech stack for the organization which will be the best as far as you are concerned. So change seems to be a very critical element about the way we need to do things, and change within an organization, just not change in terms of what you're doing. So I'd like to now invite a few questions from the audience. Please state your name, ask your question. If it's addressed to somebody specific out here, please mention that. But I'd like mics to go around to ask questions at this stage. Throwing open the Q&A to the floor. Please raise your hand if you have a question. Since there are no questions, Sunil, can we ask you to ask one question if you don't mind?
Hello.
Sorry, we got somebody.
My name is Vikas from Sham Spectra. One question: in retail industry, you are more focusing towards the in-house or the outsource technology partner? First question. The preference is in-house or the outsource? As you very rightly said, it's a mixture of in-house and outsource, but what is the preference? Because the technology is changing the era of digital in today's scenario, and different technologies coming, 5G, video analytics, artificial intelligence. So one question. And second question is, you want on-prem or you want a cloud-based? So are you, as a retailer, are you ready to outflow the footage of your industry, your retail shops, shopping malls on the broadband network?
So Kulin, would you like to, and Kulin and Venu?
I'll take the first part, and Kulin, Ashwin, please feel free to join in. I think on the in terms of whether it is in-house or outsourced, there's no one right answer to it. It depends on your organization, depends on how you want to approach your whole technology. But what I would say is that what's core to your business, the enterprise part, where your effectively the heart of your business is, that obviously should be in-house, and that's something you own. When it comes to new technologies, and again, collaboration is very important, and that's where you would work with partners to be able to move with pace. And as some of these new technologies, if they become core to your business, that's probably when you want to look at bringing it in-house, so that you own and you're able to be flexible and at the same time move quickly on any changes that you want to make. So that's on the first part. On the second part, in terms of on-prem versus cloud, again, I think it depends on how the organization wants to take it. But our own view at Shoppers Stop, we are increasingly moving to the cloud for everything. And we have an association with Amazon, and leveraging on that partnership through AWS, it's something which we have found very fruitful, and that's a journey that we have been on.
Kulin, would you like to add in?
Just
Ashwin, I
adding a
don't,
bit,
if you could also add after that.
I completely agree with what Venuji is saying, that I think what is core to you, you would want to control and own. Just adding to that, I think the one of the other assets which companies always want to own is the data layer, right? So I think the data lake is something that over time companies will always want to have under their control, albeit on the cloud. And then, you know, the way the data is used, consumed through APIs, etc., obviously then you can work with external products and applications to consume that data. The other piece, I think, which is very critical for companies to kind of own is how do you wire a complex ecosystem like this, right? If you have enterprise stack, you have different kinds of startups, I think the whole plumbing and wiring is something which is very, very critical, because that will be very, very unique and customized to every single company. So the ability to stitch together the perfect blend of in-house and outsource requires companies to be able to, you know, have the capability to stitch all of this together and own that, I would say, architecture that puts it together. And I think globally, the world is moving to the cloud, because a lot of the new age SaaS startups also come as a bundled cloud model. So I think directionally, more and more things will move to the cloud, unless there is either a security or a cost layer which makes it prohibitive. But I think directionally, like in everything else with tech, I think even retail tech, more and more things will move to the cloud, including a lot of infra as well, and network.
Ashwin, would you add? Because Reliance has traditionally been known to insource a lot of technology.
No. So here, the view is that insourcing is afterwards, after it has been learnt and understood. And but when you want to do it fast, people who have done it before, they can make it happen very fast. So finding out who is the best, of course, best means affordable to the organization. But as Kulin said, there are lots of startups who keep doing. The advantage of doing it outsource and thinking outsource situation as an open mind is that you get more ideas and you are in trend with what is happening. In-house, what happens is that over a period when the person would have been recruited, they would be the latest in the situation, because that's when you recruit them for that skill set. But beyond a point, they then become, unless they are very, very dynamic and they are like, I mean, but it doesn't happen because they are not service providers to outside. Then their knowledge remains to what is in the internal ecosystem. And that's where to get external, it is outsourcing and getting the entire ecosystem up and running fastest. Then you can stitch it together with the in-house persons, knowing what is the outcome required. And after that, maintenance and then getting all of that onto your premise and all of that hosted on your control. So even in the cloud also on your own servers, but cloud architecture is important because it gives you the scalability to everything. Otherwise, physical, we are not people who are used to doing all the cloud service and all of that. There are people who have what you call the 24/7 helplines and everything. An organization has more important things to do as a retail organization, to do retailing and do work around that actually. If you try to specialize on IT, then it is not, it's a different line actually. So depends on what is the organization's appetite to really be in the tech situation, or for us, for example, we have all capabilities with us also, and we have Geo and all of that, but still we are open to looking at the best and growing globally and understanding what is there and call the best people and learn from them. So that's the approach which is very important, I would say.
Thank you.
Bijou, one question.
Any other question? We got one question from the gentleman there.
Can I talk?
Sure. You got the mic. Please
Hi,
go ahead.
my name is Shibu. I'm from the Lulu Group. My question is, now considering that there are stores are going to become experiences stores, what is going to be the take? Is the stores going to be larger in size? What difference are you retailers planning to do? The second question is that if stores are also the staff is going to become a guidance staff for future, and then more upselling will happen online, then how will the parameters of performance of the stores in the malls change? Till yesterday, it was like malls have to get footfalls, trading density has to happen. Now that the push is also going to become more on online within the store, then how malls can, the parameters for the store's performance can be analyzed.
Sure.
Yeah, so
Ashwin, would you?
I'll take this up. So it is in continuation what I said earlier. See, the store is the place where you have the presence. It has got all the merchandise. What you're trying to do by omni-channel is you're reaching to the customer who is not coming to the store and servicing them from the store. So you are making best of both the worlds. So when that store manager is now there, that store manager's responsibility is to do both. The delivery order which came in as routed to that pin code to that store is also the responsibility. So the KPI over there, so what was yesterday that every customer who is coming to the store has to be attended well, they have to be listened and they have to be, really going happy customers. What is the definition of happy customer is also including now the online delivery which was supposed to be done on hyperlocal basis. If you don't look at your handheld terminal which is showing an order which has come to you and don't fulfill it on time, then obviously it is the store's performance which is to be counted as not doing so well. So the sales are both sales because it is coming to them for fulfillment. The experience is both experiences and it is the entire ecosystem. How soon you picked up and gave it to the delivery partner, all of that. And obviously it also includes the software people who are actually synchronizing the entire thing in an algorithm such a way that one pin code's orders are all coming together. In the route, it is making a route. All those things have to synchronize. So it's not just one piece of the store. The store is just a fulfillment point actually, which is now servicing both the channels, and we can't look it in isolation because you are otherwise doubling your cost. If you open a dark store or a dark warehouse in the same vicinity, what you could have done from your store, the answer is very detrimental in terms of your whole operation, and profitability will be just compromised. So I think store has to be responsible now for everything. Is that the change actually? Okay.
Sure. I think there are a few more questions. We might have to limit ourselves to two. So can I have, I think, who's got the mic now? You got the mic. Perfect.
Hi
Normally
everyone, I'm Aniket from Magic Pin. So my question to you is, Magic Pin has kind of put its bet on this hyperlocal quick fashion. But as leaders of retail, we want to know, are you kind of focusing with your operations team to get accustomed to this quick delivery so that they are ready when the riders come in? And what's your strategic view on this hyperlocal quick commerce?
I think in fashion, speaking for fashion, the biggest power of taking the store live is actually the width of the catalog. Because if you look at 95% of the fresh goods are in the stores. So unlike things like grocery, where speed matters, in fashion, it's the choice that gets enhanced. So, for us, now 15% of our store revenue comes from online delivery. And we've integrated stores to our own .coms and marketplace. We have our own SaaS startup, which we incubated, which does that. And in a sense, it's been very, very powerful because it increases fresh, non-discounted sale online. It gives our customers a much wider choice, and it takes up store productivity. So it actually benefits the business model tremendously. I think what is still required and which is evolving is the hyperlocal model for fashion. Whilst for restaurants and grocery, there is a lot of investment being done. I think the logistics design for ensuring, say, a 4-hour fulfillment or a 6-hour fulfillment. In fashion, you do not need a 10-minute fulfillment or a 1-hour fulfillment. There's diminishing returns, right? But the way you can create a very good milk run, because we are in between the 24-hour delivery and the 1-hour delivery. And whilst a lot of players are trying to solve it, and there are a lot of great hyperlocal models coming out there, I think that will evolve more. And if we evolve that more and the SLAs improve for fashion, I think that would be a great thing to further boost this model.
Ashwin, you all have an investment,
Yeah,
I
so
think.
I want to add to this that what Kulin said is that the advantage of hyperlocal over the pure e-commerce becomes very high because in the case of fashion, there is a fitting and the customer has to try. When it goes in pure online, it goes and comes back actually. In the case of hyperlocal, what happens is that there is a chance, and it happens all the time, at least we have a very good experience on that, is that customer has a go-to place. So when you go to smaller towns, what we call the smaller towns, tier 2, 3, 4, the geography is small around the store, and the customer also knows the store. So they order, make a choice, and then if they are not happy with the size or things like that, or they need an alteration, etc., they end up coming to the store. So they are not averse to coming to the store, but they ordered because they ordered online. So this place to go and face to talk is such a big advantage for the hyperlocal people that the returns and the entire, the not completing the sale because of a return or because of a alteration situation goes drastically down actually. And that again, when the customer is coming to the store, there is impulse which catches on actually. So they will definitely take a round while the alteration is happening and they will order something more. So the hyperlocal definitely, as Kulin said, is that 95% of the merchandise is already in the store, so you can deliver it fast. You can add on your tail coming to that store and routing, going to the customer and service the customer after sales also and get all the advantage of best of both the worlds. So that is the way of success which we would believe.
Sure. Last question, please, because we'll have to limit it for this session.
Thank you for allowing me the question. So I'm Sandeep from PwC India. So we do a lot of research on e-commerce strategy and e-commerce implementation. One thing which I want to ask, that customers' loyalty is in question with the rise of hyperlocal commerce or Q-commerce. They are shifting from one platform to another without thinking twice, right? So now, how are you envisaging in the journey to retain the customers? Incentivization, personalization, all these things which we have heard. But is there anything else you want to address to have more loyal customers for the brands?
I think when it comes to customers, customers have always had the choice of shopping with different brands. In today's world, with the change, the customer experience is still paramount and will continue to be paramount. It's that comfort, convenience, and the lack of friction in the whole journey, which becomes almost a qualifier. Beyond that goes personalization and the option of being able to, whether it is, and most journeys today start on the app, but also the advantage or the facility to be able to augment that with physical retail, being able to walk across, whether it is to feel the garment, wear the garment, look at a watch, test the makeup, each of those becomes equally important. And that's where the width of offer combined with the experience that you get will keep your customer with you. Personalization, as you already touched upon, will absolutely be key. And the more hyper-personalized it becomes, the more likely that you will retain your customer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll have several more sessions happening over the next couple of days for you all to address some of those questions which couldn't be addressed or answered today. Thank you, gentlemen, for being part of this panel. Thank you for this stimulating opening session.